All right. Hi, everybody. It is 9 o'clock on the nose, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hi, Shuven and Devna. How are you?
Very well. How are you?
Good, good, good. Thank you, everybody who's with us today. We have been doing our webinars weekly now and have had great participation. So thanks to everyone for showing interest in the webinars and in learning about different topics each week. This week we are super excited to have Shuven Khanna and Devna Khanna with us. They are SUSTA's in-country consultants based in New Delhi. We are lucky enough to see them once a year at our fall meeting, and now through Zoom, I feel like we're seeing them a lot more often. So they are going to be giving a really interesting presentation today on the Indian market, touching on, of course, everything that's happening now in COVID times, but also a more general overview as well. But before we get started with their presentation, I wanted to mention a few things. All right, for those folks who are new to SUSTA, we have two core programs. Our global events program is the one where traditionally companies would be traveling to trade shows and trade missions, meeting foreign buyers, either here in the US or abroad. And through our 50% cost share program, companies can apply to receive 50% reimbursement of certain international marketing expenses. So our global events program, of course, has been modified to meet the current climate. So we're offering several different virtual opportunities for our companies to take part in. You've probably gotten a lot of emails about these, but we're offering virtual consultations with our in-country consultants. So for instance, if you wanted to register to have a one-on-one meeting with Shuven and Devna, you could do that on our website, on our events page. You'd click on that India virtual consultation and find a time that works for you to register for that. And those are 25-minute consultations on a Zoom-like platform. And in advance, they will ask you a few questions about your company and your products and what topics you're interested in so that you can have a tailored conversation about your products and your needs, your questions. So those have been going really well. We also launched our first ever virtual trade mission. It's already sold out, but we're hoping to launch more of those. The first one was targeting the Canadian market, and it includes, it would start with a consultation with our Canadian consultant, who would then create a full assessment of your product and how it would perform in Canada. And then you would meet through Zoom several Canadian buyers. The beauty of this trade mission is that it's only $25, but also SUSTA will reimburse you up to $200 of shipping to get your products to Canada to our consultants there, who will then distribute it to the buyers that you'll meet with. So that when you're having a Zoom consultation with the buyer and seeing them face to face, they also have your products in hand that they can taste and be reviewing just like they would in a typical trade mission. So we're really excited about more of these rolling out soon, and we will be in touch about that. We email when we have new events coming out, so please make sure to open our emails. We also post them on social media, so get on Facebook and like us, or LinkedIn, and you can follow us there as well. And then I also wanted to mention a few things about cost share. Right now, of course, companies are not using cost share to get reimbursed for trade shows and traveling to different trade events, but you can use cost share to promote your products in the international market. I know we'll hear today a little bit about the social media landscape in India. If you had social media campaigns in a foreign market, you could apply to SUSTA's cost share program to get 50% reimbursement of those expenses. It could be even something like influencers, digital ads on e-commerce or other platforms. You can also use cost share to promote your products in more traditional spaces like grocery stores, which are, of course, the one essential place that everybody has been for the last few months. These could be, end caps or end of aisle displays, shelf talkers, and that kind of thing. And of course, traditional advertising in magazines, wrapping vans, billboards, TV, radio, you name it. Of course, targeting a foreign country. And one last one I wanted to mention that is going to be pertinent to today's presentation, because companies who export their food products to India will have to modify their packaging and labels. So you can apply to SUSTA's cost share program to receive 50% reimbursement of things like translating your labels, redesigning them, as well as a year's supply of new packaging and labels for that foreign country. So just a few things to think about as we launch into this presentation. Again, thank you all for being here. I forgot to mention in the beginning, we are recording this webinar. So once it's over, we will be posting the recording as well as a PDF of Devna and Shuven's presentation to our website. You'll be able to log in to your SUSTA account, go to past webinars, and see today's webinar as well as our previous webinars there. Also, everybody is muted just to cut down on background noise because we have so many people on the webinars. So if you have questions, please type them into the Q&A box and we will address those at the end. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Devna and Shuven. Let me stop sharing. All right.
Okay, so should we start? Yeah. Okay, Namaste, I'm Devna from India, and we work with SUSTA. We do all activities for them in India. We do trade promotions, we do trade missions, we're doing the webinar, we do Insta promotions. We also do trade shows where we participate and we talk about the SUSTA region products. So it's great to be talking to all of you about India, and Shuven is going to take you further and we'll give you a small presentation.
Hi everyone, I have a short presentation here. So the presentation gives you a brief about the Indian market. We touch upon certain products, also how the COVID situation has been in India, and how you can best market your products in the country. So we would like to start with a short video, which I'm going to play right now. So yes, moving to our presentation. So just to give you an overview of India, there are 28 states in India, 9 union territories, and we are a population of 1.37 billion and growing. So just to give you a perspective, I've put a map of India where, we, according to the population, we've identified countries. So if you look in the middle, it's Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh, which are states in India. The population is as large as Mexico. Similarly, we have, so India is, the population wise, it's a culmination of many countries put together to reach that 1.3 billion. Now, another interesting thing about India is that the population, we have a very young population. So 50% of the population is below the age of 25, while 65% of the population is below the age of 35. If we look at the median age, it's about 27 years. Now, when we talk about imported products, we do need to realize that it's the middle class and the upper middle class that, that can really move the product in big volume. So that is about 35 to 40% of our population, so about 400 million people. As per the United Nations, India would become the most populous nation by 2022, surpassing China. So just to give you an idea about the economy, we've been one of the fastest growing major economies in the world. The country's GDP has been about 6 to 7% growth, and certain reforms have taken place, including the goods and services tax, which is a centralized tax instead of each state having their own taxation system. So that has eased the movement of goods interstate in the country. On the right hand side of your screen, you can see, in 2010, India was at number 9, and now it's moved to number 5 in terms of GDP. So it is growing at a very fast pace. Talking about growth drivers in the country. So what's driving the growth in India? We have a rapidly growing middle class population. There has been an increase in disposable incomes, rise in education, urbanization is increasing. There's certain economic reforms such as GST that I mentioned, and of course the young population of the country. So when we look at US-India relationships, we are a global strategic partnership. So the relationships have been pretty good lately with President Trump visiting India. And in fact, India and the US are working together on a COVID vaccine also presently. So there have also been several discussions and negotiations that have been taking place, which we hope to hear soon on some duty reductions as well. So the COVID situation in India. So at the moment, we have about 100,000 cases of COVID. It's been contained for now, considering that we have a population of 1.3 billion. So the early lockdown, strategic testing, and young population has helped manage the situation. The government is slowly, so we've had lockdown, so it's been extended. Last week, the 4th lockdown was extended. So we have a lockdown until 31st of May. And then the government would open the states in a phased manner, depending on, they've divided it into zones. So depending on wherever the cases are low, they're going to open it in a phased manner. Now, one thing that's becoming more and more important during COVID times is, of course, digital. And social media plays an important role for marketing your product, even in India. Interestingly, India is the largest user of Facebook in the world. So we have the most number of Facebook users. When we look at advertising products, so Instagram and Facebook are the two options that we would actively look at. YouTube also has an extremely good reach. However, it is a more expensive proposition to place your product on YouTube. So we recommend Facebook and Instagram as the primary two tools to send out the message and about your product. So when we look at digital marketing, the conversation is ongoing. There is a fast response rate. So when you place your product, you get a feeler of how the audience is responding. You maintain your presence. So there is that recall value that is generated. Also, it's a very cost-effective mean to promote your product. So if you look at other options like digital marketing or in-store promotion, those are higher in cost. So this is a cost-effective means to promote your products. And also there is a direct call to action as soon as you place an ad for your product on social media. So the internet users in India, as you can see in this chart, is constantly rising. In fact, now we have over 600 million active internet users. And what also is interesting in the country is that majority of the users are using their mobile phones. So there was a revolution about 2 years or 3 years ago where a company called Jio revolutionized the mobile internet usage. And now every Indian, more or less every Indian, has a smartphone in their hands. So this is a good medium. So whenever you are looking at targeting social media promotions, please do keep in mind that it is most consumers are going to look on their mobile phones. So it has to be mobile phone friendly, whatever ads you place. Now, coming to during COVID times, how has the media reacted? So the print media has gone down in India. The circulation has gone down. People are avoiding traditional newspapers and magazines for now, and they are moving towards the digital platform on e-papers and things like that. So that becomes a good medium to push your product. Another thing that has happened is that since we are in lockdown, the average number of hours on the mobile has gone up. So we see more and more people spending time on the internet and the mobile phone. So just to give you an idea of how things are going, India is following the global trend. Television has gone up by 43%, smartphone consumption by 13%. Also, news consumption has gone up in a big way because everybody is eager to know what's happening, how is the government facing the lockdown, or how the world is being affected by COVID. A lot of brands are taking, recipes have come to the forefront suddenly. A lot of Indians didn't traditionally cook at home because they had help and to sort of make their lunches and dinners. But since the lockdown, everybody is becoming a chef. So there has been a large number of increase in the recipe outlet there.
So even I'm trying new recipes these days.
And when we look at smartphone usage, 4 hours is the average increase that we can see. Also, I've provided a table which gives you the weekly increase of some of the most popular social media networking platforms. So if we look at Facebook, that's changed by 18%, WhatsApp has changed by 17%, and Instagram by 20%. Moving on, to give you an overview of the port situation, initially when the lockdown was announced, the port situation was, the clearances were slow and the transportation was blocked for a bit. But then slowly things started moving, and now it has eased out. So companies are able to sort of clear their products from the port. In this map, you can see these are the major ports that you would be shipping your products to. The most popular being Mumbai. The port there is Nhava Sheva. So that accounts for 44% of the US products coming into the country. Moving on with key trends. So trends are really important. When you enter a country with your product, you must know what are the trends that are going on so that you can also drive on those trends and increase your product sales in the country. So the first and foremost trend is health and food safety. And I think this is a trend that is picking up world over. There is a huge digital boom, whether it's online delivery or e-commerce. There has been a huge boom there. Also, smaller cities are becoming consumption hubs now. There has been aspirational growth in those cities. And there is an evolution in family patterns and also the spending patterns. So I'm going to talk about it later in my presentation. So health awareness. The government of India in 2018 started an awareness campaign called Eat Right India. The whole purpose of this campaign was that the health of, they did a nationwide study, and what the government realized is that non-communicable lifestyle related diseases had doubled over the years. So they started a movement to sort of encourage people to eat healthy and eat hygienic. So that trend was already there since the past couple of years, and now it's even been further strengthened because of the present scenario. Moving on to the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, these are typically the smaller cities, not your capitals, but the smaller cities where we've been seeing a considerable growth in consumption. So what has happened is that these cities, there are people who are aspirational. They would want to emulate what the bigger cities are doing. So there is a great growth opportunity for in these cities, especially for products like alcohol, beverages, etc. Now coming to e-retail is really the fastest moving sector at the moment during COVID times. Initially, e-retail in India was confined to apparel and electronics. But now what has happened is that even groceries have become a major part of the e-retail business. We've had e-retail platforms, including Amazon. We have the same day delivery Amazon option, like we have the Amazon Prime. We have Flipkart, which in fact Walmart bought Flipkart recently in the country. And we also have dedicated platforms such as Big Basket and Grofers, who exclusively deal in groceries. So these products, these platforms are, in fact, launching their own private labels. A lot of these products are being launched exclusively on an e-platform. So for instance, Britannia is a cookies brand in India. When it launched its Good Day biscuit, it only launched on the e-platform. So that's another avenue which some of our companies can explore. So just to give you an overview of the retail market in the country, majority of the retail market is unorganized. So we look about 90% is sort of unorganized retail, whereas modern retail accounts from 8 to 9%. And it is growing, the growth has been in double digits. But what we need to understand is that majority is still the smaller mom and pop stores. Now, in India, what we have noticed is that bigger companies like Walmart and in fact Facebook have collaborated. Facebook has collaborated with Reliance Retail, and what they are doing is they are trying to integrate these smaller players and providing them a platform so that they can increase their product offering and better manage their stores. So that's going to be something that we must watch out for in the Indian market, and it would provide a tremendous growth in the coming years. Now, just to understand what the major retail chains are in India, and each retail chain caters to a particular segment of audience. So when we look at Food Hall is a retail chain which belongs to the Future Group, and it caters to the high-end clientele, where you have more imported premium products. While if we talk about a Reliance Mart, it's focused on the middle class. Even DMart is more focused on the middle class. And we have, of course, Amazon, which sort of caters to all segments across the board. Now, food service sector has been a land of promise. There has been a slowdown in the sector with COVID. So hotels and restaurants at the moment are not functioning to their full capacity, but it is a sector that we must take into account, and which has been providing a great growth for imported products. So we have all major brands are now sort of present in India, whether it's a Marriott, McDonald's, Domino's, Burger King, Starbucks, they're all doing extremely well in India. In fact, Domino's has become so popular that Domino's India has offered to buy the parent company Domino's twice already. So that's the kind of growth these brands are witnessing in the country. Now, just to give you a SWOT analysis of US products. So our strengths are that US products definitely are regarded as a good quality and safe product. So as soon as somebody sees that the American flag on the product branding, they do sort of perceive it as a safe and hygienic product. The opportunities that do exist is growth in potential food processing and also e-commerce. These are the immediate opportunities that we would like to point out to you guys. Also, we do want to talk about the weaknesses and the threats as well. So the awareness still remains a challenge. Most people are not aware of the unique US products in general. Also, there are certain tariff and non-tariff barriers and competition from domestic and other foreign suppliers. So the competition would depend on your product category, and we can discuss it at length as per your product category on our one-on-ones as well. So we need to understand that there are certain products that are restricted in the country. So 80% of the population is Hindu, and Hindus worship the cow. So beef is prohibited, pork is prohibited, and also dairy and dairy products at the moment we do not have access to it from the US. But the US government has been negotiating, and we hope to see some good news on that front, as they are trying to get a health certificate approved from the Indian government. Now, coming to the top 10 Indian consumer categories, it's led by tree nuts, the imports, along with spices and fresh fruits. So if we look at the figures for 2019, India imported about 4.7 billion worth of consumer-oriented products from the US, which accounted for 20% of the total imports. Now, coming to specific product categories, we'll briefly touch upon each category. So packaged food, India is one of the top 5 markets for packaged food. Sales volumes are about 34 million tons, and it is worth nearly $40 billion. Now, we need to realize that majority of the packaged food is consumed in urban areas, which account for 80% of the sales. And on the right hand side of your screen, you can see each category, like snacks account for 19%, sauces and preservatives account for 5%, biscuits, which are cookies, and bakery account for 36%. So just to give you a general overview of this. Now, talking about brands, people are gradually moving from non-branded products to branded products in the country. We have the millennials who are sort of willing to experiment. What's doing well in the package category are smaller sizes. So like a 30-gram pack, as it's not a very expensive proposition for the consumer, and it would give them an opportunity to try firsthand the product. And if they like it, they can, it's not a large spend from their pocket to try that product. So the smaller packets are doing extremely well. And since modern retail chains are gaining momentum, it's becoming easier for consumers to reach out to those products. Talking about non-alcoholic beverages, India holds about 10% share of the global consumption of non-alcoholic beverages. It is growing at 16.2%. And I've just slotted some main sort of categories that are included here, which is tea. Tea, we are the largest consumers of tea. It's one of our national drinks, actually. So herbal tea is a trend that is taking place in the country. So herbal tea sales have gone up recently. Indians also love coffee, as any other nation does. So we have most of the coffee chains. Now we have Starbucks in the country, which is doing extremely, extremely well. Also, green coffee is something that is a new fashion. In fact, even I've been recommended green coffee to lose weight. So that's something that's really picking up. Juices have recently caught up. Earlier, it was more about aerated drinks, but since health has come to the forefront, people are sort of moving towards healthier juices, fresh juices, for fulfilling their daily needs. Another interesting category is the nourishing drinks. Now, a nourishing drink is something that your mother sort of mixes in milk to give their children. It's like the Nesquik, but like the healthier drinks where they feel the satisfaction that they've provided something healthy to their children. So that's another category that has seen good growth. Coming to alcoholic beverages, we are a very young population. So as you would expect, alcohol sales have been going up phenomenally. It's a $35 billion market in the country. Now, when we look at the alcohol consumption in 2020, it's expected at 6.53 billion liters of alcohol would be consumed in India. And the per capita consumption from 2016, which was at around 147, grew to 227 ml. So you can see that the growth has been tremendous, but we do need to keep in mind that majority, like about half of the industry is whiskey. There is opportunity for other alcohol as well, but majority of the consumers drink whiskey in India. That's the most popular drink. Now, talking about wood and wood products. Now, India imports logs, lumber, and wood products, which reached about $2 billion. Now, import of forest and goods in the United States have witnessed a growth of 14%. There is limited domestic supplies, which is coupled with booming retail furniture, handicraft, and hospitality sector has also encouraged the growth of this sector. Now, initially, logs were the dominant part, which was about 83%. If we look at it historically, in 2007, logs accounted for 83% of the imports. That has changed now. Logs account for 48%, while lumber accounts for 42% of the imports. I have mentioned some of the most popular varieties that are imported. And there is a favorable tariff structure in the country for logs and for lumber. Also, what has happened is that there countries like Myanmar and other Southeast Asian countries, there have been certain restrictions on wood. So that has encouraged imports from other countries to India. Another development that recently took place is that US poultry received access to India. Now, when we talk about poultry consumption, the per capita poultry consumption in India is 4 kilograms. Poultry is one of the most popular meats in India, and in fact, 70% of the country are non-vegetarians. The recommended level is 10.5 kilograms. US has a per capita consumption of 43 kilograms. So you can see that there is a huge gap in the per capita consumption, and there is a huge opportunity also that does exist for frozen poultry in the country. Now, we're just going to briefly touch upon the classic 4 P's of marketing, which hold true even for India. So first is the product. So you need to understand, how your product is going to benefit the market. What are the unique aspects of your product? So that needs to be clear while designing your marketing strategy for the country. Price also becomes important. India definitely is a price sensitive market. So you need to realize what the competition is selling at. What does the ecosystem of your product look like? Who are the other players that you are competing with? And what are the, in terms of value, how does your product add value to the consumer? Also, now coming to promotions, we need to identify the best channel for your product, whether it's e-commerce, or if you're looking at a retail promotion, do we look at a big bazaar which is targeting the middle class, or we look at a food hall which is targeting the upper middle class? So that placement also becomes important. And place is again, where your sort of product needs to be displayed. Or for example, you need to, solely launch the product on an e-commerce platform that can prove cost effective and provide larger visibility. That needs to be assessed.
And also the place, like the cities where you should be doing the promotion.
Yeah, whether it's a tier 1 city or a tier 2 city that you should look at first, whether it's the North Indian aspect or the south of India. So both parts are quite different from each other. So we need to sort of decide where you would want to start with your products.
So that the retailer also gets consistency in the supply of the product.
So for example, when IKEA entered the Indian market, they opened their first store in the city of Hyderabad. So they decided that it's the south of India that they would want to sort of position themselves first and then gradually move to North India. So are you ready for India? So it is, the questions that are there are, India is definitely a growing market. There is opportunity for new products. There is a strong customer spending. You need to sort of understand first and review what are the compliances that do exist in the country. There are certain compliances which may be different from other countries, especially labeling and phytosanitary. So those are the 2 aspects that we need to sort of keep in mind. Also, as I mentioned earlier, understand the competitive space, determine your price point, and position your unique selling point. That becomes very important. That why should the customer choose our product amongst other products. So that's something that everybody should think about, and we can also help you and work on this. Now, market entry strategies. Can you comply with the Indian laws? So you first need to understand whether your product has access to the market. Then we look at what laws govern the product. So mainly it will be food safety and phyto requirements. We also can study the reports. USDA has some great reports as well on commodities, so we can look at that and see what the opportunities and challenges are for your product. When you decide that yes, it's time to move ahead in the Indian market, you need to identify a reliable importer and exporter. Also see what is, to do that, what can really help you are some trade shows. In fact, a lot of trade shows now due to COVID have gone virtual. So that would give you a platform to reach out to several importers and then sort of, speak to everyone and see who you're comfortable with. And also participate in SUSTA initiatives and USDA endorsed promotions. That would give you a better idea and understanding of the market. Payment terms, you should, establish successful working relations and sort of work on letter of credit, advance payments, whatever you feel right, but it's better to sort of work in advance. That's what we would recommend in the present scenario. When we look at the market structure, this is the broad market structure that I've provided. The US exporter would reach out to either the importer, consolidator, broker, or a repacker, who in turn would go to the distributor or the food processor. And then these would supply to the retailer or the food service, and then it would reach the consumer.
So I like to add here that the Indian importer may not want to buy a container load of one similar product. They may want to test market, so have different pellets of different products in one container. So that's why we have a consolidator here who can help you get, a few pellets, and then we can test market the product and then get back with the more orders.
So the cost breakdown, this is a typical average. It can vary a little, but this would give you a rough idea of what the cost breakdown looks like. A big retailer charges about 30 to 35%. A distributor keeps 12 to 14%. Importer takes 15 to 20% of the product. Now, documents required, the ones that you see on top are basically, you would sort of be working with them in other countries as well. Two aspects that I would want to sort of briefly touch upon are phytosanitary certificates and labeling. So my next slide is on labeling. Now, this is what a typical label should consist of. Certain aspects are there in other countries as well, but there are certain things that are unique to India. So I'm just going to briefly talk about that. And
I like to add one thing. All labels can be in English. You don't need to translate them in our regional languages.
So when you look at number 4, which is the green dot, that sort of signifies whether the product is a vegetarian product or a non-vegetarian product. If it is a non-vegetarian product, we would the product would have a brown dot on it. Also, we need to mention the lot number or the code number. It does not have to be, it can be any number for reason of traceability. That's very important. The expiry date of the product should be mentioned. And also, you can see certain requirements are commerce requirements, which the importer, which you need to work with your importer, such as the name of the importer, the commodity packed, net weight, etc. Also, the nutrition information, if it's a single commodity product, the nutrition information is not required on the label. So we can, discuss it at length for your products on the one-on-one consultations as well. So again, I would just broadly want to point out the challenges. The challenges that do exist in the country are the processing facilities are still not as many and are not as advanced as many other developed countries. There is fragmentation and long supply chains. Cold chain also is a bit of a challenge, even though that's improved drastically over the years. Modern retail remains small, but growing at a fast pace. Tariffs do remain an issue. So certain products like alcoholic beverages have an extremely high tariff of around 100 to 150%. So that becomes a bit of a challenge.
But usually the processed food is 30 to 30.
If you look at the average tariff in the country, it would be around 30%. So that's the kind of tariff that most of you would work with. And of course, it is a price sensitive market.
And also shelf life.
Another aspect that needs to be kept in mind is that 60% of the shelf life should be remaining for the product when it arrives at the port. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. Now, challenges, of course, there are several opportunities as well. The private consumption expenditure is growing. There still is seasonality of raw materials. So, for example, certain fruits and vegetables are, or even tree nuts are available during a particular season, but they are not available throughout. So the US supplies can, make it solve the seasonality issue. Consumers are becoming more accepting towards foreign products. There has been a move towards hygienic and safe products. So people are regarding US products as their choice, and sort of moving away from products where they do not feel comfortable using those kind of products. Frozen market has seen a huge growth recently. In fact, I would like to point out that demand for noodles, frozen non-veg snacks, butter, rice, digestive biscuits, chocolates have shot up from to about 50 to 150% in these 3 weeks of lockdown. So people want something handy. They want something that's easy to eat in their houses. So this becomes another opportunity even during these times. Now, what I would like to do is, again, I have a very short fun video, after which we can take some questions.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So now we're open for questions and answers.
Yes. All right. So we have quite a few questions that have come in. We'll go ahead and get started. We have about 15 minutes. Does each state require a different label, or does one label fit the whole country?
For food products, each one label fits the whole country. When we talk about alcoholic beverages, they need to register each label in each state where they would want to sell.
But the label is the
Okay.
same.
The label would remain the same. There would be a cost to register that label in those states.
Okay, got it. And you said each state has its own tax. Please confirm if there is one import tax that applies to the whole country, or is there another tax added going into each state?
So there is one import tax, which is your customs duty or tariff that applies to the whole country. And there is a local tax, which is uniform tax now, which is your goods and services tax. So it would be the same throughout the country.
Okay. And that is paid by the importer.
Okay.
So that tax, so you would only be like the exporter would look at the customs tariff, and then the local tax would be taken care by the importer.
Got it.
So he will build it into his own costs, the importer.
Got it. Okay. Is the younger generation buying more in stores or buying online and having products delivered?
So earlier, younger generation was buying everywhere, but now with the COVID situation, even I think everybody has moved towards the online channels. So we've seen good growth on online recently, but earlier even retail, saw great growth. And younger generation is sort of now willing to spend a lot more money because even if I look at myself, I would not earlier imagine to spend too much money on a packet of crisps, an imported packet of crisps. But today, that's the done thing. So people are moving towards quality, safe product.
And even spending more.
Interesting. Right. Health and safety seem to have become much more important. Is there a special duties exemption on sugar-free sweets?
So there is no special exemption, but definitely there is more demand for sugar-free healthy sweets.
So India has nearly I think the highest number of diabetics in the world. So a lot of people are into sugar-free products.
Interesting. Okay. Sugar-free. What city would you suggest for a test on e-commerce for the younger generation?
So when we look at e-commerce, usually it's spread all across, because if you're tying up with the e-commerce platform, most of them deliver to all major cities. But if we look at a packaged product, we would sort of target Delhi, Mumbai, or Bangalore would be our first entry point, and then gradually move to other cities.
Okay. Basically the metros.
The metros, the capital cities, that's the ones that we would initially target.
Okay. Do you have a list of the e-commerce buyers with email addresses, phone numbers, and mailing addresses?
We can definitely provide you a list that would be helpful. So we can, sort of list out the main e-commerce players and send you their email IDs. That would be helpful. Otherwise, the companies can also contact SUSTA or us, and we can forward their requests to the concerned person.
Yep. And some of these might be really good for the consultations. So if you have really specific questions and want that more specific information about those kinds of contacts, it would probably benefit you to register for a consultation with Devna and Shuven to really talk through some of that.
I'd like to add here, what also happens is that when you're looking at a bigger e-commerce player like an Amazon or a Flipkart, they have category managers. So there will be a category for each category of product. There will be a separate manager. So it becomes important to sort of contact the right person there.
That makes sense. Are alcohol sales allowed online with delivery?
At the moment, they are not. But with the COVID situation, there are lots of these big firms. In fact, a lot of these food delivery. We have a company called Zomato, which is the largest food delivery platform in the country. They are really pushing hard to start alcohol sales online with the whole social distancing coming to the forefront. So it is something that we would see in the near future.
Interesting. Yep. It seems like a lot of changes are coming out of this COVID situation that might be permanent.
Yeah.
All right. In the past, we have tried to enter the Indian consumer market, though found that the import duties on consumer products made importing to distributors very high. It was suggested that duties dropped precipitously if we were to manufacture or package in India. Others in our network have expressed similar concerns. Would you comment on the duty structure?
So duty structure definitely, is one of the challenges in the country. Depending on the product that our exporter is talking about, a typical average duty is 30%. Of course, if you manufacture it in India, it's going to be more cost effective. But what has happened is that there is a niche market for each kind of product. So even if you talk about sauces, there'll be a domestic player. There will be, there'll be probably 5 to 8 big domestic players. There'll be foreign players. There'll be some Italian sauces, US sauces. So there is, since the size of the market is so large, there is space for each and every product.
Also, they can do private labels here, which is also picking up in a big way. So, they can send in their products. They can be, the Indian importer can have his own private label and sell the product.
Private label, in fact, is something which has gained a lot of popularity. Even the large retailers are now sort of coming out with their own private labels. And I'd like to give an example of Big Basket, which is an online retailer. What initially it was a platform for all sellers to come together and sell their products. Now what we've seen is they are transitioning into a platform for their own private labels. So they do not encourage but they are trying to sort of package everything on their own. So that becomes an interesting opportunity for exporters.
Very interesting. Okay, but that doesn't change duties or anything if you're selling.
No, they can send it in, like
the
a
bulk packaging.
Bulk packaging.
So it reduces the
cost. Reduces.
Got it. Okay, interesting. Private label. Are the label requirements the same for fertilizers and soil amendments?
I would need to get back on this question.
Yes. Right. So that would be a great opportunity, I think, for this person to sign up for a consultation to speak about something specific like that. Is there a significant reduction in duties and tariffs if we send bulk product to India and then package them in retail form? I think we just answered that question. So yes, there is, and that works particularly well for private label. Do people in India utilize microwaves often? Is that a common?
Yes, that's a very common thing now. Each house, at least in each middle class house, would have a microwave. As how the family patterns are changing now. We have, earlier the housewife was sort of at home and not working, but now you have both partners working. So convenience is becoming the way to go in the country.
And then we had a lot of nuclear families also.
Yeah. So earlier it was this large joint family, everybody living together. Now we're adopting we have nuclear families. So people want convenience in their life. So microwave is there in every middle class family.
Great. As a noodle supplier, how can I take advantage of getting in front of importers or consolidators? So traditionally in a non-COVID time, SUSTA would have opportunities for you to be meeting with foreign buyers, trade missions, trade shows. Last summer, we, with Devna and Shuven, had several big events in India, including a SUSTA pavilion at Seattle, India last summer. Of course, none of that is taking place right now. I do believe the Annapurna show in the fall is still taking place. Is that correct?
In fact, Seattle is now scheduled for 3rd to 5th of December.
Okay. Those events are the really great ways to expose yourself and meet a variety of importers. Otherwise, do you all have any recommendations of how somebody might connect with an importer?
So we may be planning some activity with SUSTA. We still, deciding on the said activity, the final decision. So maybe, you could ship your product, send it to us. We could, do a virtual meeting with the buyer and send your product to the buyer. So all those things we're still planning, and we should have a concrete plan by maybe next week.
Great.
And
so what they can do is they can participate in the SUSTA activity, and then they can get connected to the concerned importers in the country.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm looking forward to rolling those out. Do plant-based products have to pay a tariff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Any
Yes.
product. There might be an exemption of certain products, but most products do attract a tariff.
Sure. What do you recommend an exporter do under the COVID situation? I don't know what the question is directly, but maybe if somebody's already exporting to India, is there any recommendation?
So what we would recommend is that since these are challenging times for every market, you need to be you need to understand that your clearances might take longer. Even if you are sending samples at the moment, it might take more time than usual to clear. So that should be kept in mind. When you are sort of contracting with an importer, try and contract an advance payment at the moment. That would be helpful, and you would be secured in that way. And also e-retail is something that you can sort of utilize and target at the moment with everybody. Like, you literally have a captive audience because we are locked down in the houses. So people are interested in looking at new things and exploring the opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're going to do that, keep in mind that through our cost share program, if they have advertising opportunities on those e-commerce sites, that you could, launch an advertising campaign to really push people to your products and apply for 50% reimbursement of those types of ads through our cost share program. All right, another question, interesting about trademarks. So trademark registration cost, is there an issue with products being copied like in China? Is that a problem in India?
Not really. So it's not, there are no such issues, but of course, trademark registration, most products, when they're coming in from other countries, they don't get their trademarks registered. But if they're using it in a big way for advertising and things like that, trademark is not a big cost in India.
Okay. Is it better to have stickers applied in India when goods arrive or applied before the goods ship?
So as per the labeling requirement, there are certain aspects that need to form part of the label at the time of export. While there are certain Indian parts such as the importer's name, FSSAI number, which can be rectified in India once the product arrives. So it's best to sort of have the labels at the exporter's end. However, under certain situations, if it is missed out, then it can be rectified in India only for certain aspects.
Got it. Okay.
Good to have a label with all the information at one go on the product. Because which the importer usually helps the Indian importer buyer would help the exporter.
That would make the clearance a lot faster and easier.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's something important to point out, that the importer does help you figure out how to make your labels compliant. So you're not just doing that in the dark. Of course, the FAS post helps as well. They have guidelines, and we can point you in that direction. And again, if you are changing your labels, even if it's stickering, you can apply for our cost share program to do the design work, the translation, produce the new labels or the stickers, and even the cost if you were hiring somebody at an hourly rate, so not one of your employees, but somebody outside of your company to affix the stickers on the products, even that would be reimbursable under the cost share program, 50%. What are the best social media platforms in India to promote your brand? I think you guys touched on this a little bit, but maybe expand.
So I would say there are two platforms that any company should initially look at. One, of course, is Facebook. We are the largest users of Facebook in the world. And the other one is Instagram. Now, when you look at a social media platform, there are certain tools which allow you to sort of focus on a particular age group, focus on a particular region to boost your posts. So that's something which is offered by these platforms without any costs. So you can utilize those tools to reach out to your target audience. Whether you want to target the youngsters or do you want to target a little more mature audience. So depending on what your TG is, you can use those two tools. YouTube again is very, very popular and even more popular with the whole COVID situation. But that becomes a very expensive proposition to begin with, because you need to sort of have do the post-production work for the video, and then to sort of spread the word, it's a more costly aspect. So I would say stick to Facebook and Instagram.
Interesting. Okay. And yes, that's what we've heard. I mean, it's very easy to target, like you said, age and location, and it's like clicks of a button, and you can really, target your audience. If you're going to work with a marketing or PR agency in India or in any foreign country, those expenses are also 50% reimbursable. So of course, talk to SUSTA first, but keep in mind, you don't have to be the social media expert in India. You could always work with somebody there and then apply to get the 50% reimbursement. Let's see. Okay, I don't see any other questions coming in. And it is right at 10 o'clock. Oh, one more. With extended clearance times through Indian customs, shelf life is always a concern for buyers. Is there anything that we should be concerned about?
The extended time is just at the moment. So things have already, eased out. Because initially when the lockdown was announced, there was less clarity with how things would function. But it's been about a couple of months since then. So things have already eased out. So clearance should not be the problem. If you're exporting today, once the product arrives, at that time, clearance would not be such a challenge. Okay. But again, keep in mind that 60% of the shelf life should be, when it touches the Indian port, that should be remaining.
Okay. 60%. That's a good benchmark. Okay, well, that was so interesting. Thank you all for putting together such a timely presentation. I know everybody has questions about, what's happening right now and how to keep promoting their products. So we know so much more about the Indian market now. And I think that we'll have several companies signing up for more of the consultations to, get some more specific feedback on their products. So thank you. Again, everybody, we have recorded today's webinar and we'll have a copy of the I2I presentation. So we will be emailing all of you who registered for today's webinar with that information once it's been posted to the MySUSTA website. So you'll be logging into your MySUSTA account. You can click on past webinars and you'll be able to see today's webinar as well as all of our past webinars. I'd also like to mention next week we are going to have one featuring FAF Export Marketing in Europe, and they're going to be talking about how to price your products for the European market. So please register for that if that is something interesting. And the week after that, we will be focusing on Canada. So anyway, stay tuned. And again, like us on social media, and you'll be seeing all of the new events and things that we're posting. But we'll be sending you emails as well. So stay in touch. And thank you all for being with us. And thank you, Shuven and Devna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.